Hi there. Our mini lecture today is on the presidency, and we're going to go through the Constitution, Article 2, to see exactly what the Founding Fathers had to say about the president. Now remember, our Constitution is very, very important because our elected officials have to do what is in this Constitution. It's not a document that's in some archive or some tomb somewhere. It is a living document that we use every day, and I'm using again the textbook. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to swivel a bit to show you some things on the board. But let's go through the Constitution together. It is at the back of your textbook, and I wish you would turn to that Appendix 2 and follow along with me as we go through Article 2, the executive article. I put on the board here for you the President, Article 2, and then there are 3 amendments on the Constitution that deals with the President. Amendment 12, 22, and 25, and we'll look at those. All right, let's start Section 1, Clause 1. This article is much shorter than Article 1 that dealt with the Congress. So here it is, the executive power. Remember, the framers of the Constitution decided that we were going to divide the powers of government into 3 branches. Some power from the Constitution would come to the legislative branch, the Congress here made up of the House and Senate. Some powers would be to the executive branch, the President and Vice President, and the entire federal bureaucracy is part of Article 2. And then the judicial branch would be in Article 3, and we'll deal with that a little later. Okay, it says here, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America, and he shall hold his office during a term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President, chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. Now, so this is what you've got. You may remember from another mini lecture on Congress, the House serves a 2-year term, and the Senate serves a 6-year term. And here we find that the President and Vice President serve a 4-year term. Pretty cool, huh? 2, 4, 6, so that you have a nice rotation in office, so that not everybody goes out at the same moment and then all come new people coming in. You have some continuity, 2, 4, and 6 here. All right, it's going to tell you next here how these people are elected. Now let me just explain a little bit about this, and I'm going to do another mini lecture on the Electoral College. This is a very unique way of electing people that we have here in the United States. It's very unusual, and most Americans just don't understand it at all. So you're going to understand it very well, and you'll be able to tell all of your friends and amaze your children and grandchildren as well. Okay, the people, you may remember from Article 1, elect the members of the House, and because of the 17th Amendment, elect the members of the Senate directly. They also elect members of their own state legislatures. All right, this is what it says about the Electoral College. Each state shall appoint, in any way the legislature wants, a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. So, every state has the same number of electors to go over here as it has senators and representatives representing it in Congress. You may remember that Texas got 4 additional representatives in the last census. So we have 36 representatives and 2 senators. So we have a total of 38 electors that are going to serve here representing Texas in the Electoral College. Back to Rhode Island again. Remember, it's a very small state, has 1 House member, 2 senators, so the electoral number for Rhode Island would be 3. So the big states have an advantage here, the small states don't. People elect the state legislatures who choose their electors, and we'll talk about that a little later, and these people serve in the Electoral College, which selects the President and the Vice President. Now we know that we all go and vote for the President and Vice President, but in the early days, people did not do that. These people were totally elected by the members of the Electoral College, and we have modified that through the years. So please read in your Constitution the commentaries on this article. Okay, let's go down to Clause 4. Clause 5. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution, 1789, shall be eligible to the office of President. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who is not 35 years old, been 14 years a resident within the United States. So those are the qualifications for being president. Some people say, well, that person isn't qualified. Why are they running? If you are 35 years old, a natural-born citizen, and been in the country for 14 years as a resident, you're qualified. Clause 6. In case of the removal of the president from office, or his death, resignation, or inability to discharge the powers and duties of said office, the same shall devolve on the vice president. There we are. The president can't serve, the vice president serves. We know that. And the Congress may by law provide for the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability, both of the president and vice president, declaring what officer shall then act as president. And such officer shall act accordingly until the disability be removed or a president shall be elected. Now that is called the line of succession. It's not in the Constitution because Congress sets that by law. You all know this. We have the president, vice president. Who's third in line? The president pro tem of the Senate, next the Speaker of the House, and then on down through the cabinet as the cabinet officers' departments were created by Congress. That's the line of succession. So we know that there's always somebody that's going to be able to be president. When many of you watched the State of the Union message recently, and all the cabinet were in the chamber. The president pro tem of the Senate was there, the Speaker of the House was there, and all the members of the cabinet except one. There's always one that doesn't come to the State of the Union, and that is because if the whole place blew up or the roof fell in, there would be somebody to be able to be president. And it's generally the person that with the least seniority in the cabinet, the one is not there. All right, now we're going to look over here at the 25th Amendment because something was added to the Constitution which is very important. So if you look over to your amendments section, and let's look at the 25th Amendment. This one came in 1967. And the reason it came in was this. We had some presidents. We know that if somebody dies or resigns, the vice president takes over. But what happens if somebody is in a coma? If somebody goes crazy? If somebody is, has any kind of severe disability where they can't serve, but they're not resigning and they haven't died? So they put in 1967 this amendment. Section 1. In case of the removal of the president from office or his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. We know that already. Section 2. Whenever there's a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. We have used that one time. Let me show you when that was. In 1973, the president was Nixon. The vice president was a guy named Spiro Agnew. This is 1973. 67 is when the amendment came in. Agnew resigns. So Nixon uses this part of the 25th Amendment, and he nominates Gerald Ford, who was the minority leader of the House of Representatives and a congressman from Michigan. Gerald Ford is confirmed by the House and Senate. And then in 1974, what happens is Nixon resigns the presidency. Ford is elevated to the presidency, and there's a vice presidential vacancy. He has to nominate somebody because of this amendment, and he nominates Nelson Rockefeller, who had been governor of New York. So, in 1974, and through the remainder of that term of Gerald Ford, you had a president and a vice president who had not been elected. That's the first time and only time we've ever had that happen. But I'm glad we had that 25th Amendment for vice presidential succession, or I guess we would have had the president pro tem of the Senate in there as our president. All right, now we go on to what happens when there is a disability, a severe disability, and the president doesn't resign. Whenever the president transmits, the president transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker his written declaration that he's unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting president. That's happened one time since 1967, when President Ronald Reagan had severe abdominal surgery. He transferred powers over to his Vice President, Vice President Bush, G.H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, and President Bush served for a period of about 6 hours until Reagan woke up from the surgery and took on the powers again, probably right there in the recovery room, and took his powers back. That's the only time that has ever happened, but it's good that we have that. Now, what happens if the president becomes disabled in a way and yet is refusing to resign or transfer his powers? In Section 4, there is a section where Congress, the Vice President and majority of the Cabinet, can tell the Congress, we think the president needs to be temporarily removed from office. And if Congress agrees with that, they have a vote, and you can read through that. It's very specific what to do so that the Vice President takes over until such time as the president regains his or her health. So read that. It's very, very interesting, the 25th Amendment, 1967. Now, going back quickly to the Constitution, Clause 7, the president shall at stated times gets a compensation for his services, which shall neither be increased or diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected. The salary of the president at the moment is $400,000 a year set by Congress, but it can't be diminished by Congress. It can be increased, but not diminished. Clause 8, here is the oath of office. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that's what he puts his hand, usually, you don't have to, on a Bible or some book, and takes that oath. Next, the powers and duties of the President. Here are the functions of the President. He is Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the United States. He's the head of the cabinet. He can require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments. He has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Clause 2, he has the power, with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties. Provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, he nominates, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. Clause 3, the President shall have the power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. Section 3, he shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union, and you all are well aware of the state of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may on extraordinary occasions convene both houses or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers of the United States. Remember, in the 3 branches of government, the legislative branch makes laws. The President enforces laws. And the judiciary interprets the laws made by Congress and enforced by the President. That is the best example of the separation of powers. The last section, and this is a short article. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So, it provides a way that a president can be impeached by the House and tried on those impeachment charges in the Senate. We've had two presidents that were impeached by the House, Andrew Johnson, who followed Lincoln, and President Bill Clinton in your lifetime, and no presidents that have been convicted by the Senate. Neither Andrew Johnson nor Bill Clinton were convicted by the Senate. So that's the article. The other amendments, 12 and 22, I want you to have a look at. 12 it deals with the Electoral College, and 22 puts term limits on the president. That was in the 1950s. This is after Franklin Roosevelt was elected 4 times as president, and the Republican Congress after that decided that a president needed some term limits. So a president now has 2 terms, or a total of 8 years in the 2 terms, or a total of 10 years. If the president comes in and finishes out somebody else's term, that president can be elected 2 more times. So that's Article 2, the executive article, which sets the baseline for all activities of our very most powerful President of the United States. We'll see you next time. Thanks.